As we often say on this channel, this is the era of show your work, the whole trust me, bro bit that we have been living through for my entire life. We're the federal government. Trust us. Shut up, shut up, shut up. That doesn't work anymore. You have to show results. And it doesn't matter who's in office, it doesn't matter what their last name is. We are going to demand results. There have been some great results in the Trump administration. There's been some things that you could work on. One of the things they could work on is following up on this promise. And we pressed the vice president about this when he said to us and broke huge news here that Ilhan Omar, in fact, did commit mass immigration fraud. He said it right
Ilhan
here.
Omar and Tim Walz.
Exactly.
And obviously, Ilhan Omar, the president and the White House have been out saying that she married her brother, that there is immigration fraud going on here. These are deportable denaturalization offenses. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so we actually think that Ilhan Omar definitely committed immigration fraud against the United States of America. And I talked to Stephen Miller about this actually recently. We're trying to look at what the remedies are. That's the thing that we're trying to figure out is what are the legal remedies now that we know that she's committed immigration fraud? How do you go after her? How do you investigate her? How do you actually do the thing? How do you build the case?
Okay, so there falls to the federal government the responsibility to prosecute immigration fraud. That is not something that Congress can do. But Ilhan Omar, thankfully, is so stupid and such a scammer that she's committed what I believe to be multiple offenses that she could be imprisoned and or deported for. Now, I want the federal government and the Trump administration to take the executive actions that they need to through Homeland Security and the enforcement of our immigration rules. And that's what I pressed JD Vance on. Like, we have to see actual results. And lo and behold, people are actually getting wrapped up and are getting prosecuted for Somali scams and scams across the country. JD Vance is spearheading this. There have been some very good progress made on that front. But everybody is asking about Ilhan Omar because she just is the figurehead for fraud. Ilhan Omar, here's just one example. There are so many, but here's just one that we've studied. Ilhan Omar wrote a bill called the Meals Act. This was during COVID when the government was just printing and handing out money. The Biden administration helped Ilhan Omar write the Meals Act. And what that did was it lowered all regulations and all checks on where government money was going to provide meals for children and hungry people. So it effectively made the checks zero. So anyone, just based on the honor system, right, could say, I fed a kid today, reimburse me 18 bucks. Okay. That's what I fed the child. I gave them a sandwich, right, and a juice box. So reimburse me. And the federal government would just cut you the check. Ilhan Omar wrote that bill. And then who were the first people that started defrauding the entire federal government in this entire system? All of Ilhan Omar's friends, campaign workers, advisors, and donors, all of them in Somali-run Minneapolis, Mogadishu. And we've had now 97 different guilty indictments, like pled guilty on running a scam operation. It's called Feeding Our Futures operation, where these people were charging the federal government for meals they were not serving to children. There were no children there. It was all fake. You're telling me that Ilhan Omar didn't have something to do with this. He wrote the actual bill, and all of her friends benefited from it and scammed it. Straight to kingdom come. You're telling me, okay, I wasn't born yesterday. Where does Ilhan Omar get so much net worth? Ilhan Omar reported her net worth was $30 million. And she used fraudulent companies to get there. She said, I own a winery. She doesn't own a winery. She doesn't own a winery. She doesn't. We investigated that. We proved it doesn't exist. But what you do in small-time criminal operations is you money launder. You take legitimate institutions that might be like, cash businesses like a laundromat, and where it's really hard to trace the money, and you pump your money into that. This is like the old mob way of money laundering. So this is how Ilhan Omar would be able to claim millions of dollars that perhaps were kickbacks from a Feeding Our Futures scam. Do you see how that all works? She passes the bill, her friends get rich, they cut her in. And that's how the fraud works. Well, anyway, thank God she's probably going to prison for this too. Okay. I want her to go to prison I want her to be charged for everything, the immigration fraud, but this is a big one. House Oversight referred Ilhan Omar to the Ethics Committee to investigate her revised net worth. She claimed she was really only worth $100,000, down from $30 million due to an error. I'm sure that happens to you. If you were to do this, by the way, on your taxes, you'd be in prison. If you were to claim that you were worth $30 million, or that, let's say you were worth $30 million and you said you were just worth $100 million, you'd be in prison. Trust me, your life would be over. And it is over for tens of thousands of Americans that do this. Congressman Ilhan Omar is under investigation for major revisions for her financial disclosures. Oversight Committee members are pressing for details, knowledge of welfare programs assisting Somali communities. Key witnesses of the $250 million fraud case alleged Omar actively intervened to keep the program operating. Would you look at that? Well. Somali Rep Ilhan Omar could now face federal subpoenas as she lied about her $30 million net worth. So here's what's really important about delineation of powers is that Congress, by and large, tends to have to hold itself accountable. So while Congress doesn't have a police force, right, they can't raid you, Congress can refer you to the Department of Justice. They can do all of the legwork on fraud like this, save the Justice Department time, and then the prosecutions can then come directly from Congress. Like you could kick out a member of Congress. This happens all the time. It's happened a couple times this year where you have censure votes or votes to actually kick members out of Congress if they behaved in criminal manners or have been indicted. Congress can do the work, kick the member out. They can't charge people criminally because there's not a law enforcement branch in Congress, but they can kick it all over to the DOJ, which is controlled by Trump. So that's why this is important to kind of understand like where the separations. So that the immigration fraud stuff has to go to the DHS to investigate, and then the Somali fraud stuff can be investigated from Congress, right? It was Congress, after all, that voted for the bill. Ilhan Omar should be under investigation for finances. She should be thrown in prison, revoke her citizenship, and deport her. Closer look into her disclosures. I mean, listen, here's the deal. If you lie in a federal government form, if you lie on your congressional disclosures form, which Ilhan Omar obviously did here, then what you end up doing is you end up committing another felony, right? So if Ilhan Omar says she's worth $30 million and she's not worth $30 million, that's another federal felony. Try lying on your taxes. Don't, by the way. Please don't, because I don't want you in prison. Try lying on your taxes. You're done. You'll be done. You're finished. Here's Ilhan Omar dancing with, I don't know, how many of these guys are her brother? I'm not sure. I'm just telling you, man, the time for results are now. If you let somebody this criminal get away with it, it's obviously not for lack of trying. President Trump literally sharing our investigation on Ilhan Omar here, which we're honored. Thank you, Mr. President. President Trump sharing our investigation here. And then wrecking Ilhan Omar, saying, why doesn't she go back to Somalia? It's such a great country. Why doesn't she go serve there? Why is she serving here? Great question. It's time for results. It's time for results. The American people, you can't let Ilhan Omar get away with it. If you let her get away with it, you're going to create 200,000 more Ilhan Omars, okay? And that's exactly what's happening. So end all Somali fraud. J.D. Vance is doing that. End all Somali migration to this country, parasitic migration to this country. Stephen Miller's doing that. The Trump administration doing that. And then arrest Ilhan Omar to prove to everyone that that's not allowed here. Okay, that's how you win. Hit your boy Benny, like, share, and subscribe.